All right, folks, buckle up. This week in crypto, well, it's been absolutely nuts, hasn't it? It kind of feels like sipping coffee on a roller coaster, thrilling, messy, meh, and you might just lose some along the way. So today we're going to be using the news article, Crypto Week in Review, Trump's Reserve, Pi Coin, and Market Swings. And we're going to be using it as like a roadmap, for this wild ride we're about to go on through presidential bombshells, a cautionary coin crash, and of course, that ever-present market roller coaster. So, are you ready to try and make sense of it all with me?
Oh, absolutely. Let's dive right in. At first glance, this week's headlines, they might seem all over the place, a little disconnected. But I think if you look closer, they actually give us this really fascinating glimpse into like the growing pains of crypto, the excitement, the pitfalls, and the increasing role that governments are playing in shaping its future.
Yeah, speaking of excitement, I think we got to start with the elephant in the room, or should I say, the Trump in the blockchain. That surprise announcement he made about a U.S. crypto strategic reserve on Truth Social. I mean, it really sent shockwaves through the crypto world. Did anyone see this coming?
Not many at all. You could practically hear the entire crypto world gasp when this news hit.
Yeah.
Think of it like this, like the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve, right? That massive stash of oil that we keep for emergencies. But instead of oil, it's crypto. Trump specifically named a few coins that he wants to be part of this reserve: XRP, SOL, ADA, Bitcoin, and of course, Ethereum.
And of course, the market completely lost its mind, right?
Oh, absolutely, it did. It did. Bitcoin surged almost 9%.
Yeah.
Just like that, smashing past $92,000 like it was nothing. Some of the other coins that Trump mentioned saw even bigger jumps, some shooting up by 50%.
Yeah.
But while those immediate gains were, super exciting, I think the real takeaway here is the government acknowledging the fact that crypto is becoming more and more important as a growing force. It's like a giant green light for big institutional investors to really start getting involved.
Sure.
And it could even lead to some major policy shifts, down the road.
It's like suddenly crypto has a seat at the grown-ups table.
Exactly, precisely.
Right.
But of course, with any big announcement like this,
Yeah.
there are always more questions than answers. How is this thing going to be funded? What criteria are they going to use to pick which cryptos are included? How do they even plan to put all of this into action? So many unknowns. And let's be honest, with Trump involved, there's always a little bit of that wait and see approach. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, you're not wrong about that. But luckily, there's that White House Crypto Summit that's happening on March 7th. So maybe, just maybe, we'll get some answers then. But while we wait for those answers, let's maybe shift gears a little bit to a different kind of crypto story, one that feels a little more like a cautionary tale.
Yes. You must be talking about the Picoin saga. It's a classic example of the volatility that can really hit new cryptocurrencies. It can hit them like a tidal wave.
Yeah, like watching a rocket launch and then just explode midair,
That's a rather dramatic analogy, but I see your point. Bitcoin launched on February 20th at just over 61 cents. And then in a frenzy of hype, it rocketed up to $2.16 by February 26th. So that's a gain of over 240%. I mean, people were practically tripping over themselves to get in on the action.
But as we all know, what goes up
Must come down. And oh boy, did Picoin come crashing down. By March 2nd, it had plummeted almost 45%, landing back down at $1.72. Sure, it's still up from its initial price, its launch price, but it's a harsh reminder that chasing quick profits in the crypto world, it can be like playing with fire.
So what's the lesson here for our listeners? I mean, is it as simple as just don't buy into the hype?
Well, that's definitely a part of it, but I think we could dig a little deeper here. The real takeaway, I think, is the importance of due diligence, especially with new coins like this. Don't just jump on the bandwagon because it seems like everyone else is. Take the time to really understand what it is you're investing in. Read the white paper. That's the project's blueprint, and see if it even makes sense. Does it hold up? Look at the team behind the project. Are they experienced? Do they have a solid track record? These things matter. And most importantly, I think you really need to understand the tokenomics. That's basically the economics of the token itself. How's it distributed? What's the supply like? These factors can be huge, huge red flags, or they could be green lights.
It's like buying a house. You wouldn't just sign on the dotted line.
Yeah.
It's out a thorough inspection first.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, precisely. A little bit of skepticism and some good research can go a long way in protecting your investment.
Yeah, and speaking of protecting your investment, this next story is a really stark reminder. that the crypto world, well, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Let's talk about that Gain Bitcoin scandal that just got busted in India.
Ah, yes, the Gain Bitcoin case. This is a prime example of the darker side of the crypto space.
Mm.
It was this massive Bitcoin-based, multi-level marketing scheme
Mhm.
that basically defrauded investors out of a staggering 6,606 crore, which translates to about 790 million US dollars. So India's Central Bureau of Investigation, or CBI as they're known, has been on this case for a while. And they recently seized 23.94 crore, which is approximately $2.87 million
Mhm.
in cryptocurrency that was connected to the scam.
It's kind of scary to think that something like this can happen on such a large scale, you know?
It is. And unfortunately, scams like this aren't that uncommon in the crypto space. That's why all that due diligence we were talking about, it's so crucial. Remember, if it sounds too good to be true, well, it probably is.
Yeah, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've got government interest, we've got new coin hype, and a major scam. It's like a crypto buffet of excitement and caution, all rolled into one. But let's maybe zoom out a bit, look at the bigger picture here, and look at the overall market trends. Things weren't exactly calm there either, were they?
No, not really, not really. On February 26th, the entire crypto market took a bit of a dip. The global market cap, which is basically the total value of all the cryptocurrencies out there,
Hmm.
it dropped by 3.6% to $2.94 trillion. Bitcoin, as usual, kind of led the way, falling below $90,000 for the first time in a month, ending up around $86,338 on February 27th.
But even with Bitcoin taking a bit of a breather, some of the other coins, those altcoins, they managed to hold their own. Some even gained value.
That's right, coins like Maker, MKR, Polkadot or DOT, and Litecoin, or LTC. They all saw some gains, despite the fact that the overall market dipped. It just goes to show that even when the big players stumble a bit, there are still opportunities for smaller players to shine. And it's also another reminder that diversifying your crypto portfolio is always a smart move.
So what's driving these fluctuations? I mean, is it just random chaos, or is there some method to this madness?
It's definitely not random, although it can sometimes feel that way. There are actually a bunch of factors that can influence these market swings: government regulations, news about adoption by big companies, even just general sentiment in the market. These can all send prices soaring or plummeting. Remember, the crypto market is still relatively young. It's kind of still finding its footing, which makes it more susceptible to these kinds of fluctuations.
It's like a teenager, full of potential, but also prone to some pretty dramatic mood swings.
Yeah, very apt analogy. Very apt analogy. But that's part of what makes it so exciting, right? It's such a dynamic and evolving space. Anything can happen.
And that unpredictability is both thrilling and, let's be honest, a little bit terrifying. But before we get too swept away in the market currents, I think it's time to dive a little deeper into what all of this means for the average person, for our listeners.
That's a great point, because at the end of the day, it's really about how these developments impact people's lives and their financial decisions.
Exactly. So let's unpack that in part 2 of our deep dive, so stay tuned.
So we saw the highs and the lows this week.
Yeah.
Presidential pronouncements to, some pretty cautionary crashes. But let's bring it back down to earth for a sec.
Yeah.
What does all this really mean for the average person? Someone just trying to figure this crazy world of crypto out. What should our listeners be thinking about here?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, on the one hand, you've got this incredible potential for innovation, for growth. I mean, crypto could revolutionize the way we think about money, finance, even governance. But on the other hand, there's just so much uncertainty, volatility, and yeah, let's be honest, there's risk.
Yeah, it's like this thrilling, uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Full of promise, but definitely some pitfalls along the way.
Exactly. So how do we, as average folks even, begin to navigate this new world? How do we separate the hype from the reality and actually make some, smart decisions?
Well, I think it all boils down to education. The more you understand about the technology, the more you know about blockchain, different cryptocurrencies, the factors driving the market, the better equipped you'll be to actually make informed decisions. And just as important, I think, is understanding the risks, the scams, the volatility, the regulatory changes. It's all part of the game.
So it's not just about jumping in head first. It's about equipping yourself with the knowledge you need to navigate these currents.
Precisely. Take Trump's crypto reserve, for instance. If it actually happens, think about the ripple effects it could have on the whole global financial system. It's huge. It could legitimize crypto in the eyes of governments and institutions. Could lead to wider adoption, maybe even new regulations down the line.
Yeah, it's like one of those chain reaction machines. One event just triggers this whole cascade of others.
A perfect analogy. A perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And we see similar things happening with individual coins, like the Picoin saga we were talking about earlier. It generated so much hype, but ultimately it was just driven by speculation, and that fear of missing out, that FOMO, that kind of frenzy can be really dangerous for investors who don't really understand the underlying fundamentals.
So how do our listeners avoid falling into those FOMO traps? I mean, it's easy to get swept up in all that excitement.
It is. And that's why sticking to the basics is so important, Research, due diligence, those are your best friends in the crypto world. Don't just jump into something because it's trending on Twitter or some influencer is shouting about it from the rooftops. Take the time to actually understand what you're investing in, why you're investing in it, and what the potential risks might be.
Yeah, it's like any other major financial decision, right? I mean, you wouldn't buy a house or invest in the stock market without doing your homework first.
Exactly. And remember, in a space as fast-paced and ever-changing as crypto is, staying informed is more important than ever.
Yeah. Speaking of staying informed, let's circle back to something we were talking about earlier, government involvement. It feels like we're at this turning point, where governments around the world are starting to pay some serious attention to crypto. What do you make of this shift?
Oh, it's a crucial development, and I think it's going to fundamentally shape the future of crypto. For a long time, governments were hesitant to engage with it at all, viewing it with suspicion, sometimes even outright hostility. But that's changing, and I think there are a few key reasons why.
I'm all ears. Lay it on me.
Well, first off, crypto is simply becoming too big to ignore,
Yeah.
The market cap is in the trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
More and more people are investing in it every day. Governments they can't afford to sit on the sidelines anymore.
It's like trying to ignore the elephant in the room, right? At some point, you have to address it.
Exactly. And then there's the innovation factor, right? Governments are starting to realize that this blockchain technology has the potential to really disrupt so many different industries. Finance, supply chain management, healthcare, you name it. They don't want to be left behind in this technological revolution that's happening.
So it's not just about regulating crypto. It's about harnessing its potential.
That's a big part of it, yeah. And of course, there's the issue of national security, right? Governments are getting more and more concerned about the use of crypto for, illicit activities, money laundering, terrorism financing. They want to make sure they have the tools to monitor and regulate these activities.
Yeah, it's a complex landscape for sure. And it feels like we're really just at the beginning of this whole conversation about how governments and crypto are going to coexist,
Oh, absolutely. The relationship is still in its very, very early stages. We're going to see a lot of experimentation, a lot of debate, and a lot of evolution in the years to come. This isn't a set it and forget it kind of situation. It's an ongoing process.
And for anyone who's serious about crypto, I mean, it's crucial to stay informed about all of these developments, right? I mean, the regulatory landscape is constantly changing, yet those changes can have a huge impact on the market.
Couldn't agree more. Staying informed is it's key to making smart decisions. I'd recommend following some reputable news sources, engaging with the crypto community online, and keeping an eye on what policymakers are saying and doing.
Yeah, it's like anything else. Knowledge is power.
Exactly, especially in a space as dynamic and rapidly evolving as crypto.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from Trump's surprising crypto reserve announcement to that Picoin roller coaster to the broader trends shaping the whole crypto landscape and the growing role of governments. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Please do.
We've talked a lot about the risks, the volatility, but it's important to remember that crypto is still a relatively young technology. It's still in its early stages of development, and there's a lot of potential for growth and for innovation. So my question to our listeners is this: what role do you think crypto will play in the future?
That's the question that keeps me up at night.
Will it become a mainstream form of payment? Will it revolutionize the way we think about finance? Will it empower individuals and challenge those traditional power structures? Only time will tell, but it's a conversation worth having.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. And I encourage everyone to join that conversation.
Yeah, it is exciting, but it's also kind of, a little daunting to think that we're potentially witnessing the birth of a whole new financial system.
I know, right? And that's exactly why it's so important to really engage in these conversations.
Yeah.
To think critically about what's possible.
Yeah.
But also the potential pitfalls, the downsides, because
Good.
whether we like it or not, crypto is here to stay, and it's going to impact all of us in one way or another.
Okay, so to wrap up this deep dive, let's bring it back to some like practical advice. For our listeners, we've thrown a lot of information at them, market trends, government regulations, those scam warnings. What are like the key takeaways? What should they keep in mind as they navigate, those crypto waters?
Right. So if I had to boil it down to just a few essential points, I'd say, first, never ever invest more than you can afford to lose. Crypto, it's a volatile market, and there's always that risk that you could lose some or even all of your investment.
Yeah, that's rule number one for sure.
Absolutely. Second, do your research. Always do your research. Don't just jump into something because, it's trending or someone promised you, quick riches and Lambos. Really understand the technology, the team behind the project, and the potential risks involved. That's crucial.
Okay, so no FOMO, just facts.
Exactly. Third, always be aware of scams. Something sounds too good to be true. Well, it probably is. Especially be cautious of those promises of guaranteed returns or
Yeah.
schemes that, require you to recruit other people. Those are usually big red flags.
Yeah, those are the classic pyramid scheme tactics.
Exactly. And then finally, remember, this is a constantly evolving space. So stay informed, stay up to date on new developments, regulatory changes, market trends.
It's like learning to surf, right? You got to know how to read the waves, respect the power of the ocean, and be prepared for an occasional wipeout.
I love that analogy. It perfectly captures the spirit of navigating the crypto world.
And just like surfing, it can be incredibly rewarding if you
Right.
approach it with the right mindset. And of course, with the right preparation.
Couldn't agree more. The crypto world, it's full of opportunities for those who are
Mm.
willing to learn, adapt, and ride those waves.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one riding that next big crypto wave.
Now, that's an exciting thought to end on.
Until next time, happy diving, everyone.